This is modern homesteading. I grew up hunting in eastern Oregon with my grandfather, and we used to hunt elk in the fall. And he always talked about the dangers of getting a cold shoulder. He always was concerned, make sure you get a good proper wool coat or a wool sweater. You don't want a cold shoulder, he'd say. You get a cold shoulder and you're done. I don't think I really understood what that meant at the time, as much as I do now. But he wore a Mackinac Cruiser. And what is a Mackinac Cruiser? Mackinac Cruiser is a coat that has a really long and rich history. It's kind of interesting. I'll share it with you. The original Mackinac Cruisers were designed in the Mackinac area, which currently today is the Michigan area. And they were traders commissioned some local women to produce a coat for the Royal Army. They had a post up there. And they were to use blankets they called 3-point blankets. They were a really heavy wool blanket to make these coats. The original ones, as they were spec'd out by the traders, they were supposed to be blue, a dark blue, and they were supposed to be long, like a greatcoat, which had the long tails that went down to the knee. What they found out with the original prototypes were that they were not very great for work. They were fine for standing around in the streets of London, but those long tails drug in the snow, and they hindered guys, and they were caught on brush and branches, and they just were not an ideal. So what they did is they trimmed them and they cut them short. And that is where the Mackinac Cruiser started. So you often see, what do you think of when you think of that red and black pattern? You always kind of associate that with woodsmen or loggers. When we see cartoons, the loggers always got that red and black checkered. How that came about and how that started was that when the coats became so popular, when they ran out of the 3-point blankets, they started using what was on hand. And a pattern that was really popular back in that day was that red and black pattern. So those red and black blankets became the red and black coat, or the Mac. And the logging industry and the woodsmen and the trappers of those areas really embraced that coat and really have come to be known by that black and red pattern, that Mac pattern, has been kind of a symbol of the woodsman, or the Canadian woodsman, or the West, and of course the Western loggers out here in the Puget Sound area as well embrace the coat. So that's what we have to this day. So that's where that pattern came from. So I want to talk about the jacket a little bit, and then I'll talk about what my take is on it, but I just want to give a little bit more information on it. The wool used in these jackets is special because it goes through a process. Some people call it boiling, some people call it hot water bath. It doesn't make any difference. So what they do is they'll have a piece of virgin wool. The bolt is about 84 inches wide, and they'll run it through a hot water process, and what that does is it brings it together and shrinks it, and when it's done, that 84 inches it'll finish at 60 inches. So those wool fibers shrink up and get tighter and tighter and tighter and make this heavy, dense, thick wool, which is really wind resistant. And one thing that's really nice about the wool jackets, if you work in a cold, wet environment like the Pacific Northwest, is that these wool jackets, this wool can absorb up to 30% of its body weight without feeling clammy, like Filson puts it, or wet. And it can be completely soaked through, and it doesn't lose all of its heating properties. Modern day, a lot of the materials like down, for example, you get a down coat jacket wet, it's useless, it has no insulating value. Where wool will always warm you. So kind of just a little interesting take on how it's put together. This cruiser jacket right here was my grandfather's. It was his. And he bought this in the, I think it was the early 50s. And you can see traditional collar, traditional woodsman color. It's got the, one thing you'll often see on the cruisers is they're going to have a big, what they call a map pocket across the back. And so these buttons open up here. And what that does is that opens up this entire area, and there's a pass-through pocket in here. So if you wanted to carry maps or paperwork, you could store them across your back without folding them up, and that is very traditional. But this just goes to show if you buy quality, how long you can expect it to last. How many coats have you purchased in the last 15, 20 years? This here is a living example of that. Purchased in probably the early 50s, and here it is today, and Mrs. Wranglerstar is still wearing it. So is it foolish to pay $300-400 for a handmade, American-made jacket of this quality? If you find your grandchildren are wearing it, it's not. So that's his. Mine's coming. This is a wool vest that you've seen me wear. I really, really love this. This is made by the Filson Company, USA made, and it's called Mackinaw Wool. So you'll hear them talk about Mackinaw Wool, or this is made out of Mackinaw Wool. There is no Mackinaw Wool. That's kind of just their marketing campaign. This is just their design. But it's the same heavy, thick, boiled wool that is just probably one of the best fabrics that you can wear. Back to the Cruiser, the point of this video. This is my Mackinac Cruiser. Made by the Filson Company. You can see their tag here. All made in the USA. I have been wearing this now for several weeks, and I will tell you that this is the best jacket that I have ever had. And all of my other jackets have been hanging on the coat hook, and I've not worn one other jacket since then, except for if I'm doing something in the shop, welding or greasy, where I don't want to ruin this one. But this is the one I go for. I just cannot believe how warm it is. It's, how I would describe it is, it's beyond warm, it's cozy. You know, Dave Canterbury talks about the wool blanket and how that is the one of the greatest innovations that man has ever created. To be able to, when you're cold, to wrap a nice big warm blanket around your back and your shoulders is a delightful experience. And that's what wearing a wool cruiser jacket like this, what it's like. It's just, it's so cozy and so warm, especially in that clammy environment. I love, love, love my Mackinac Cruiser. This Mackinac Cruiser was a gift. I did not purchase this. I have coveted one of these. I've wanted one of these for so long, but it was a tremendous expense, and I never really could justify it. I've already got coats. It's not like I don't have a coat, but it was given to me by my subscriber by the name of Mike. And Mike is not a rich guy, and Mike made sacrifices and saved to do this, and I am so honored. I want to thank you, Mike, for that. What a special gift, and something that I'll think about you every time I wear it. So I want to thank you. Appreciate that. So if you're still here, you probably would like to watch part 2. There it is. Click right there, and that'll take you to part 2. Why did I break this up into multiple videos? We live in a remote location, and I have satellite internet, and it hates videos over 10 minutes. And I have a lot of uploading problems, so I do break it up in multiple parts. But I'll link them together in a playlist, so it's pretty painless. So click on that if you'd like to watch it. Again, if you like these product reviews, or from time to time and me sharing these things, please, you can support the channel and show your enthusiasm by clicking thumbs up. It's a reminder. I know. You forget, though. I have to remind you. I have to be reminded myself, so that's why I do it. So I hope you enjoy part 2, and we will see you on the next video.